Hey everybody, welcome to Sky Stage. I'm going to keep my mask on because we'll have readers on this mic and I don't want to spray on it. and again, this is our second Wednesday literature series, and tonight's host is Frederick Writers Workshop, and members of that will be reading tonight. We have Amy Gottfried. She's a professor at Hood College of writing and also an advisor for the Studies in Women and Gender minor. And her passions are fiction writing and American literature, and she has degrees from Syracuse University and PhD from Tufts. And she is currently working on her second novel. She can probably tell you more about that. What else do I want to say? So we have just opened for events now, live, small, limited capacity events. And so we're live streaming as well, so we can reach more people. Anyone who's not from around here who happens to be watching, we're in a pre-revolutionary building show. And a few years ago, artist Heather Teresa Clark built a sculptural lattice that you can't see maybe right now that's on the left with plants. And we have an art installation in here currently too that you can check out online, skystagefredrick.com, and our whole calendar. And about 4 years ago, the artist created this venue, and the Frederick Arts Council manages the programming on it. So we have several series, and tonight is Lit Night, and I will let the readers take it away.
Amy Gottfried.
Hello, so good to see all of you. I'm assuming I am well placed for this microphone, yes? I don't need to lean in or touch it. Oh, excellent. Wow, this is so exciting. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I really want to thank two people who upended their entire evening at about 5:30 when I realized a 25-minute story was too long to ask anyone to sit through, and I dug something else out. And I grabbed my husband and daughter and said, read this and tell me if it makes any sense. So thank you, Ruth and Vince. You guys rock. And Ruth, it is just zucchini in the bowl. If you want it to have any flavor, you're going to have to put garlic and eggs and feta cheese. It's live streaming, yeah? Okay. This is a story called The Green Woman, which is the name of another story, too, that I'm going to change the title of. Bill's war could have been a lot worse. For one thing, he came back to Brooklyn alive, with all of his limbs and vitals. For another, Verna was waiting for him. After they got married, they moved into one of the little garden apartments on East 57th Street. Then came the babies. But Korea hadn't made him, to use his mother's phrase, the way World War II had made his older brother Hank. Hank had come home and made a real go of their uncle's construction business. Then he went to Long Island, where he took up martinis and smoking like he was getting paid for it. He bought a big place way out on Montauk Point, where you could see the ocean from his living room. Hank's wife wasn't overly bossy, his kids weren't too spoiled, and there was the ocean. Bill and Verna would take their own kids out every once in a while. You know, Verna said one Sunday night during the long drive back to Brooklyn, there's nothing wrong with having nice things. Of course not, said Bill. But their version of nice depresses the hell out of me. For instance, why cover your couch with plastic? At least she has a couch worth covering up, said Verna. The kids were asleep in the back seat, the car dark except for the radio's acid green glow and the amber end of Verna's cigarette waggling up and down when she spoke. It turns out Bill should have paid closer attention to this conversation. Well, hindsight, he said to himself. What can you do? At least Verna left him the kids when she walked out. You know, she told them, my home will always be yours, too. She'd gone into the city across the bridge to an Upper West Side one-bedroom that was not much bigger than the garden apartment she'd shared with Bill. The kids had to sleep end-to-end on the sofa, which was itchy and hard, and, said their mother's new husband, French, as though that meant you couldn't drool on the cushions. Trust me, Bill said when the kids got home. They drool in France, same as here. Still, Verna was their mother, and the new husband knew a bunch of artists and actors down in the village, so weekend visits were filled with strange little restaurants and stranger one-act plays. Nearly every Saturday night, Verna threw a raucous party for a bunch of intense people who had no sense of what was appropriate conversation for children. One night, a woman with violet-shaded eyelids and a rope of hair hanging past her bottom took a liking to Claire. Holding Claire's face between her hands, a sharp, immediate whiff of linseed oil, the woman told her that no matter what a man promised, she should make sure that before dawn he had vacated her bed. "You got that, honey? Out by sunrise. No coffee, no breakfast. You're his lover, not his waitress." Claire nodded solemnly. Sunday mornings, she and Martin took turns playing bartender with the leftover glasses before Verna and the new husband would emerge from the bedroom with puffy, tragic faces and hair like tumbleweeds. Meanwhile, Bill learned plumbing and tried hard to love the two scrawny pear trees by the front stoop, trees that had spawned not one goddamn pear in the 16 years he'd lived there. "Garden apartments," he told his kids, "is a joke." "Are a joke," said his son Martin. "Yes, they are," said Bill. "Look around you. You see a garden anywheres?" "No, what I mean," Martin began, but Bill talked over him, a thing he had to do more often these days ever since Martin had turned 11. "Exactly. What's the point of calling this place a garden apartment when it has no garden? Why get a man's hopes up like that?" "But, Dad, apartments is plural," said Martin doggedly. "Apartments are plural, son. I know you kids don't think it's important to speak properly, but it counts." Martin was doing his homework at the kitchen table, having been forced to come in from out front. He'd been explaining photosynthesis to the Spizzoli twins, who were sprawled on the little square of lawn in hopes of luring a tan from the weak April sun. Each twin crossed her legs at the ankle, right over left. Each had a halter top, one red with blue dots, the other blue with red dots. Martin had just gotten to the miracle of autumn when Mrs. Spizzoli's voice cut through the benign afternoon. "My good towels," she screeched. "What are you, the Queen of Sheba's? You can't lay on the grass like a normal person?" So the twins went in, and Martin carried his books and pencils up to the kitchen table. He could have used the little desk Bill had set up for him in their shared bedroom, but he liked an audience. His sister Claire, who did not, was sitting on the stool by the window teaching herself how to play guitar. Bill came in and took his glass of leftover coffee out of the refrigerator. Then he sat at the table and sighed. "So, it turns out the compost is going to take a little time to cook, to rot down from scraps and leaves into something we can actually use." "What?" said Martin. Claire wasn't really listening at all. She flicked her fingers up and down over the sound hole of the guitar, still hearing more fingernails than chord. "Look," said Bill, "I know you both have a lot of distractions, like the girls downstairs and whatever it is Claire does all by herself. But you gotta learn to listen when people are talking to you. For weeks, I've been talking about making a garden. Now we got a couple of shovels and a pickaxe for the rocks, but the dirt's so full of crap that sucks the nutrition right out. There's no point in throwing any seeds into it yet. So we need compost, and that means we gotta build a bin." The bin would fit neatly in the 4x4 space in back, between a stunted shrub and the garage wall. Bill came home from work and dragged out the sawhorse he'd made, along with the pine boards and the circular saw, the electric drill, the screws, the nails, the braces. The street echoed with the wailing of power tools and hammering, and Bill's bellowing of the poems he'd memorized in the Army. He liked to emphasize every other syllable. "'Tis a beauteous evening, calm and free, the holy time is quiet as a nun." Or, "My life had stood a loaded gun." The saw's rotary blade made Martin anxious even before it went into motion, so Bill gave him the simpler jobs, clearing stones away, digging the sod up to level the ground. But Claire loved the saw, loved the way the vibrations thrummed down to her toes as she sliced through the pine boards. She loved the look of her fingers against the pale wood. They looked like they belonged to someone who knew what she was doing. But when Bill caught her staring at her hands instead of the saw, he ran over and yanked out the plug. "Listen," he said, "I know a guy, works at the hardware store. Great carpenter. He can do anything, furniture, houses, you name it. But he got careless once. The saw ripped right through his hand. Bill held up one hand, then snapped 4 fingers closed. Now he's got nothing but knuckles." He waved his fist back and forth. "Pretty hard to play the guitar with knuckles," he added, unnecessarily in Claire's opinion. The bin got its maiden load of kitchen scraps on April 30th, and within a few years, the garden had sprawled over the back and front lawn. People came from blocks away, stopping to admire the rows of caged tomatoes and peppers studded with orange bursts of marigolds, the monstrous sunflowers that loomed over most of the kids. Waves of primroses, daisies, and hollyhocks floated back toward the apartment building, and in the very back of the garden were gladiolas, which were temperamental and required digging up every fall. But that kept the soil easier to work, and the glads surrounded the tiny grave Bill dug when Martin's hamster died. At 16, Martin took it harder than anyone expected he would. "You don't want to bury a larger animal, like a dog or even a cat, so close to where food is," Bill began, before Claire shushed him. They both stood back as Martin, mouth tight and eyes red, placed Whisker's hamster wheel at the head of the grave. Then Bill squatted and gave the dirt a nice, neat mound. "In the end, son, we all go back to the ground," he said. "That's how we grow into something else, something green and living." Claire squeezed Martin's hand. She imagined Whiskers transformed into something out of the movie Day of the Triffids, tall and mossy, leaving a trail of hamster devastation in his wake. For herself, Claire hoped there'd be no afterlife at all, just a blank nothingness. In 3 years, Martin was called up for Vietnam, a war that was far worse for him than Korea had been for his father. Claire would read later that Martin was one of 759 soldiers killed that year, just 8 months before selective service ended the draft. At first, the Army wasn't even certain he was dead. Along with 8 other soldiers, he'd been caught in an ambush, the results of which weren't clear for some months. But there had been 2 terrible letters sent from a commanding officer. Additionally, due to a bureaucratic fluke that no amount of phone calling or letter writing could change, the Army had the wrong home address on record, which is why 2 men, one in full dress uniform, the other with a chaplain's dog collar, took a cab one January morning, not to the garden apartment on East 57th, but to Claire's Coldwater flat in Queens, in order to extend the regrets of the United States Army. Their polished black shoes reflected the psychedelic posters of fuchsia and turquoise and clashed with the battered deal furniture covered with ashtrays. The chaplain made her a cup of tea in the squalid kitchen, and they waited with her until her roommates returned. The girls took turns sitting beside her all night as she held her knees tight into her chest. They stroked the only part that showed, the nape of her neck, until it was raw. There wasn't much left of Martin even before his cremation, and Verna and Bill fought over where he'd be buried. "Arlington Cemetery's an honor," she said. "It means something to have a son there." "Yeah, it means my son is dead," said Bill. "I don't want him there with all those anonymous white crosses." Verna pointed out that Martin would get a proper tombstone, not an anonymous cross, but it was no use, and in the end, Claire sided with her father, though she vowed privately she would never visit Martin's grave, no matter where it ended up. Even the words Martin's grave were an impossibility, an abomination that did not bear thinking upon. So it was fitting that nobody was there when late one April night, Bill went out to his garden, now relegated to the area behind the building, but still expansive. In the back, where gladiolas had given way years ago to delphiniums, he dug tenderly between the tall stalks. He was careful not to damage the roots as he lifted them, the cool soil friable in his cupped hands. It wasn't hard to arrange the root balls around the heavy, deep blue urn and backfill the hole. He hated the Army seal with its ridiculous splay-footed eagle that clutched a quiver of arrows in its left foot and a spray of laurel in its right. He wished he'd been brave enough to just smash open the urn and free Martin, spill him right into the hole. Whiskers was somewhere around here, if anything at all was left of him. If there was any kind of comfort at all, it was that the 2 of them would find each other. Verna wouldn't be pleased, but he had no plans to tell her what he'd done. He had no idea what he would tell her. Surely she'd want a respectable grave at which to mourn respectably, but at this point he wouldn't even tell Claire. Maybe it was just as well not telling, because it wasn't Martin buried beneath the delphinium. It was 4 years before Bill and Verna got the official phone calls telling them their son was still alive. Then the surreal visits from the Army officials, the formal letters detailing the capture, the POW camp. 4 years during which Claire and Bill and Verna walked up and down streets, into offices and apartments and art museums, in and out of grocery stores and coffee shops, to weddings, all of it feeling like a hollow reenactment of actual life, until the moment a plane touched down on a tarmac. A gaunt, stoop-shouldered man with a crew cut stood at the open cabin door, his skin deeply tanned except in pale patches on his cheeks, where the beard had just been shaven. He shaded his eyes in the glaring sun as his sister broke free and ran past the restraining white-gloved hands of officials and soldiers and army guard, halfway up the boarding stairs, and then she stopped and, looking at him, finally breathed. Much later, towards the end of her radiation treatments, Claire got a visit from her old friend Beth, which would have been unsurprising had Beth not been dead for almost 20 years. She had had a heart, as they used to say, that nobody knew about, and had dropped dead one Sunday morning after breakfast while walking the dog her girlfriend had made them get. "Look," Claire said to Beth, "will you look at the inside of my arms? Look at all that creepy skin when I leaned forward." And she showed her. "Oh, come on," said Beth. "I can't believe you. What was that promise? You know, when I—" She trailed off and faded a little, the green bowl of apples on Claire's kitchen table seeming to glow through her middle. And then she came back. "At least you have skin to get creepy." It's true. When Beth had died so suddenly, Claire had made a promise to Beth, who she knew couldn't hear it, but mainly to herself, never to complain about sagging or wrinkles or diminished energy or any of the other compromises she'd have to make as her body aged. She told herself aging was a privilege, not a right, and especially not a curse. Since Beth would never get the chance to get old and wrinkly, Claire would do it for her, and gladly. Only someone in charge hadn't heard, and now at 53, Claire herself was dying, long before her own old age would really kick in. Her kids were stricken, her husband unable to cope, so nobody talked about it until she sat them down and told them what her father had told her. We all go back into the ground and grow into something else, something nice and green and living. It was frankly horrible when he said it, and she realized too late it was just as frankly horrible now. Too late, she saw herself as her kids would, a grade B sci-fi movie. She'd imagined a flower unfurling grimly up and up, with her father's eyeball in the middle of its ring of petals. But she'd forgotten all that until just now. It was better when they didn't talk about it, so they stopped, and the kids avoided her for the most part, which was easier. There was no reprieve for Claire at the end, no surprise announcement of mistaking identity on the part of the army. She was dying, and then was dead. She stipulated that she wanted only a cardboard coffin, but otherwise left the disposal of her body up to her husband, who'd gone the conventional route and had her buried in a smallish cemetery out on Long Island. There was blackness without warmth, but also without cold, without blackness for that matter. It was a nothingness, a blankness without sensation, and certainly without thought or consciousness, and who knows how long it went on, the infinitesimal weakening of sinews, the gradual dissolving of bone and cartilage, before a warm spell reached down into the ground, and there came a crumbling of soil, a shifting of microscopic root as it curled over upon itself for miles, fine as a baby's hair and old as a mountain. Through what had been a pelvis, a spine, a hip girdle, the wild violet emerged. Its first translucent tendrils pushed up and up until they broke free of the dirt and reached out into the warm spring of April, stretched and forked and bloomed into petals, where Claire's great-granddaughter stood by her grave and traced the headstone with her fingers, though she could not yet read. And the wild violet swayed in the wind, brushing against her ankle. Nobody noticed, not even the child, that the violet came to rest against her foot and stayed longer than anything else. Thank you.
All right. Amy, thank you so much. Holy cow. I hope that there are like thousands of people watching this live stream right now because they all need to hear your amazing work. That's really, really beautiful. Thank you. Sophie, will you come up here? This is a play that I'm in the process of writing, and this is the first scene from it. and it's called Reading La Rochefoucauld in Public. Right now, I might change that. But I've enlisted the help of Gillian Shelly, who's a phenomenal actress, and Sophie Staires, who's another phenomenal actress, to help me read this play. So Sophie, take it away.
Okay. Do I need to say this?
No, it's okay.
Okay. An outdoor cafe on a charming street in a charming southern town. There is a small independent bookstore next door to the cafe. It is early afternoon and the day is lovely. Sarah, a smallish woman in her early to mid-40s, is sitting at an outdoor table sipping tea and picking at a chocolate croissant. She's very lovely, maybe even annoyingly so. She pulls out a copy of La Rochefoucauld's Maximes in French. A man, Paul, is leaving the bookshop followed by Amy. Paul is the same age as Sarah, but he looks a bit older. He's a little overweight, his hair is graying and thinning, and he looks tired. He is dressed in the ill-fitting, dark and rumpled clothes of a poet trapped in academia, which in fact he is. Amy is a bookish woman in her mid-30s. She's very touchy, very in her body, as they say. Really, I've never heard it put that way. I mean, yeah, death is like palpable in that poem.
Yeah, death is palpable in everything I write, I think. In fact, I think it's palpable in everything everybody writes.
Sure, okay, but don't you think...
The death is palpable in everything, period.
Okay, I mean, I don't know if... Okay, but your poem...
My poem.
It's physical, it's embodied.
Embodied?
It's erotic.
Well, I didn't intend...
I mean, fingers inside...
It's hand inside my chest.
Stroking a fruit?
A pear that was rotting there. Yes, I suppose it's an old trope. The association or the conflation of sex and death. It's a tired, old trope, one that I would love to leave behind if I could.
Oh my God, no. I mean, it works. It's effective. Your work, I love your work.
Well, you're very kind.
I'm looking forward to your reading tonight.
So am I.
Maybe we can grab a drink after it?
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Paul,
You don't want to.
I'll see you tonight. Paul, every woman wants a writer.
No, I don't. No, women want guys with money.
No, women want Salman Rushdie.
He has money.
It looks like you have a fan.
Yeah, well, she's the one.
Paul, aren't you going to say hi?
Oh my God, you're kidding me. You got to be kidding me.
I'm mysterious as a heart attack.
Oh my God, I feel like I'm about to have a heart. Sarah. Oh, what are the odds of this?
I know. Of all the gin joints in all the towns. Are you all right?
No, I got a little lightheaded.
Oh, sit down. We'll get you some water.
No, I'm sorry about that. I'm tired, I guess. I've been traveling.
Don't apologize,
And
my
then
God. What?
Nothing.
What? Paul, are you okay?
Yeah. Your perfume.
Ylang?
Yeah, long. Yeah, I used to have to order it from someplace in...
Texas. Still do. Is it bothering
No,
you?
I had a little Proust cookie moment.
Ah.
Actually, kind of a big Proust cookie moment. This is insane.
You look great.
Very kind of you to lie. You actually do look great.
Thank you. What are you doing here?
Here, you mean town?
Yep, in Georgia.
I'm on a kind of a tour kind of thing. I'm doing a few readings at bookstores around the South.
A tour. Wow, look at you.
Well, it's not. I'm paying for it. The gas, the motel. Just trying to sell a couple of books. It's actually kind of a sad, pathetic gesture in the direction of a book tour.
Sounds kind of romantic to me.
Like, yeah, if you're 22, it probably is. What?
Turn your head to the right. A little. Okay. There it is. I just needed the right light.
The right light.
I can see him now. He's in there. That 22-year-old boy. That 22-year-old boy with the long tangled hair and the big black boots. with Walt Whitman or Nietzsche or Sylvia Plath under one arm.
Those were props.
props.
The books, they were props. The bigger, the better. Part of, I don't know, a carefully curated image. I didn't start actually reading them until I was in my 30s.
Well, you had me fooled.
I had myself fooled. And look at you. What do you have there?
This? La Rochefoucauld? The Maximes?
In French.
Well, I wanted to brush up.
On the French or the pithy aphorisms?
Oh, both, I guess. Listen. Conseil la caractère d'un grand esprit de faire entre peu de pétrole beaucoup de choses. Le petit esprit, au contraire, au-delà d'un beaucoup parler, est un rendier.
Well, I need to brush up on my French.
Just as it is the character of great spirits, of great minds, to make a lot of things understood with only a few words, so small minds, on the other hand, have the gift of talking a lot and saying nothing.
Well, how do you like that?
The guy must have loved poets.
And advertisers.
This is going to sound a little weird, but I just read that minutes before you walked out of that store, and I thought of you. That rush of nostalgia, memories. Paul de Silva, great poet and former lover. I wonder what he's up to. Wonder how he is. Crazy, right?
Great poet. I don't know about that.
Psh, you are a wonderful poet, Paul. I have a little confession to make. Is it too early in the conversation for a confession?
What the hell? Go for it.
I have read your books. All of them.
All three? Well, I'm afraid it's time you will never get back.
Oh, stop it. When a new book of yours comes out, I've gone to that little bookstore right over there.
They have great poetry selection.
They do. And I've gotten your book, and I've come right over here, and I've sat down and ordered coffee and a croissant, and I've read it cover to cover.
I suggest
Twice,
scotch
if I have time.
instead of coffee when you're reading my poetry.
And they have all moved me, shaken me, broken me even.
Well, that doesn't sound good.
Paul, you are an incredibly talented man.
Sarah, I'm an average teacher who occasionally publishes his drivel with tiny presses that distribute books to 7 or 8 independent bookstores along the East Coast. Most likely because the owner of the press got their MFA alongside the owner of that bookshop. In fact, I happen to know that the owner of this little shop got her MFA with Gloria, who's the woman who runs the micro press that published my last book. I publish these collections of drivel so that the small liberal arts college that provides me with a tiny windowless office and pays me a pittance to teach iambic pentameter to their unmotivated but charming students. I publish these books so the college will continue to pay me. It's all theater. We're performing for each other with a proverbial wink and nod.
Well, I disagree. They're not drivel.
Speaking of theater, how about you? Still act?
My dear Paul, I am a stay-at-home mom who occasionally drinks too much wine and recites Lady M into the bathroom mirror. Pretty well, I think.
And your husband?
Paul. He's a lovely man.
Good.
Can I ask you something?
You can ask, but I don't promise an answer.
The you in this book.
She pulls Paul's most recent book out of her bag.
You got that. That just came out today.
I got it this morning, and I read it here.
Wow.
Yeah, and the you in these
It's not you,
poems.
Sarah.
All right, it's just
Really, it's not
But
how
there
I
are
write.
some scenes.
But the speaker in my poems is not me, and everything in them is imagined. Je est ut ultra and all that. There's some French for you.
I mean, okay, but in the first
Look,
poem,
I only have my personal
and
experience.
in the yellow notebook I might have stolen from St. Mark's bookshop, one yellow Sunday morning, I wrote by hand all of Sappho's dirty little songs.
I'm just making stuff up.
I still have it. The Sappho notebook. It was one of the most beautiful gifts I've ever received.
Sarah,
Except it's red, it's not yellow.
See? Complete fiction.
And the one about Yosemite and the fallen trees, and so many poems about cigarettes on the rooftops in the East Village, and figs, and things I said, things I very clearly remember saying to you.
Are you angry?
I don't know. No. No. I don't think so. I'm just opened up. Exposed. Nostalgic. It's not really a strong enough word.
We were kids. I mean, I never thought you would read those poems. I didn't think I ever crossed your mind.
I was planning on coming to your reading tonight. I was going to surprise you. I saw the poster on the door and I wanted to come. I wanted to see you. And then I thought I better read the book before I saw you.
Come.
I wanted to be able to say something intelligent.
Come to the
about-
reading.
I don't know.
No, you should come. Really, I want you to come.
I just think it might be kind of weird. I mean,
Look,
people know me
this
here.
whole thing is already weird. We might as well ride it out. Unless, of course, you have to take care of stuff at home.
No. Connor took the kids to somewhere. He took them camping for the weekend.
Oh, well, wait, Connor?
What?
Your husband's name is
Stop it.
Connor?
Paul.
What is he, a 7th grader?
He's Irish, and he's a really good guy.
Of course he is. So you have nowhere to be. Let's get a drink.
He waves to get the waiter's attention.
I'm not much of a drinker.
And never were, I guess. Well, I am. Oh, give me a beer, please.
A beer? Any particular beer?
Yeah, you got anything local, like a light local?
Devil's Faceplant does a pretty killer Hefeweizen.
Pretty killer Hefeweizen,
And
all right.
Dumb Blunt has a great seasonal goza if you're into sours.
I better go with the Devil's Faceplant Hefeweizen.
And for you?
A Chardonnay with an ice cube.
A Hefeweizen or a fucking Goza? Can you believe that shit?
Paul.
Remember when you could just get a beer?
Careful,
And the
buddy.
most exotic thing anyone drank was a Corona.
You're starting to sound like an old man.
I hate to break it to you.
Ah, hold it right there. We are the same age, and I'm not old. I refuse to be old.
You remember when we slept together the first time?
Oh, so we're moving to that part of the conversation already? That was fast.
Babies born after that. Amazing night. Like significantly after that are my students in college.
I'm going to smack you.
They're graduated college.
Why do you do this to me?
This kid getting our
Don't
drinks.
say it.
This kid getting our drinks was born way after that.
If I had my wine already, I would throw it in your face.
Always so dramatic.
So, we're getting older, but we're not old.
Devil's Faceplant Hefe and a Chardonnay with an ice cube.
Thank you.
Thanks, young man.
Oh my God, he's not even that young.
I know.
he could grow a full beard.
I know.
He's kind of sexy.
Okay, that's a little weird.
I'm just saying, I am physically attracted to a boy, a man,
Who was born
after
after
the Big Bang.
Nice.
I haven't thought about that in so long.
It's not like I sit around
I was terrified.
thinking about the. Wait, what?
Nothing.
No, what do you mean? You were terrified?
I mean, yeah. Yeah, I was.
Really? Why?
Paul, forget it.
It wasn't your first time, was it?
No, not at all. I mean, there were plenty.
Then I'm sorry. I don't think you ever told me this before. You were terrified of me.
Yes. Of you. You were. I don't know. You were very intense. It was kind of like this focus that you had on me, this intense desire, maybe passion. I don't know. It was exciting. I was there for it. But I was scared. I had never in my life had someone look at me like that. I didn't know if I was about to have the best sex of my life or if I was going to get murdered and dumped in a lake somewhere.
I am so flabbergasted by this revelation because the way I remember
It
it.
turned out to be pretty good. I thought I told you that.
No way. I would have remembered that. Scared of me. Huh. I remember that night perfectly, and what I remember seeing in your faces.
What?
Tell me about your kids.
Maggie is 11. Chuck is 8. They're the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Of course they are.
What? What?
What?
Of course they are. What do you mean by that?
Just tell me about your kids, for crying out loud.
Chuck is just like his dad. He's a rock, kind, not the sharpest kid, but a genuinely good kid. Maggie is, well, everyone says she's the splitting image of me. Spitting image. Spitting. Is it splitting or spitting? Anyway, she looks just like me at that age, and she's mean like I was.
Well, you weren't mean, you were emotional.
Prone to anger like I was. She is passionate. She has recently had her heart broken for the first time by some little shithead named Eleanor. I think she fell hard for her. And of course, at that age, when someone breaks your heart, it's devastating and it really feels like the end of the world.
Guess it does.
So she came home, apparently after being broken up with or something, and she took this little music box that her dad had given her when she was really little, and she smashed it into a huge mirror that's on top of her dressing table, and then she kicked a hole in the wall.
Jesus.
I know. Her dad was furious. I mean, like, ready to call the cops furious. But I don't know. It made me really sad. I mean, I know how hard I felt things then. I did stuff like that all the time. I mean, maybe not that bad, but I mean, I did put a couple holes in a couple walls.
You did that while we were together in our apartment.
I know. I broke some stuff. I've had to work for a lot of years to control that. I was going to say anger. It's not anger, it's not just anger.
Intensity.
Yes, intensity of feeling. It's almost unbearable intensity of emotions. It's like they're always there, just below the skin, waiting to bust out at any moment.
Everyone's always told me, Paul, you know what your problem is? You're attracted to crazy women.
Funny, Paul. You're crossing a line.
I know, I'm a sexist prick.
Yes, you are. And by the way, that thing that made me afraid of you, that first time we made love, the reason I was scared,
Yeah?
that look in your eyes that scared me so much, it was the same thing. I saw inside of you what I knew I had inside of me. I was terrified in a way because I saw myself in you. You had just as much passion inside of you as I had.
I don't know about that.
It's true. You still do. I read your poetry. I see it.
No. See, that's a mistake. People that don't really study poetry make about poetry all the time, that it's about emotions, that it's somehow a raw expression of an inner emotional life. It is not that at all.
Come on, Paul.
No, really, poetry is an intellectual engagement with the senses. It is not a litany of fucking pop song cliches that some teeny bopper posts on their fucking Instagram or whatever. It's not an ejaculation of your feelings on the page. It is not spontaneous. It is a craft that is built upon years of study and rigor. There is nothing spontaneous about it. Fucking Wordsworth. The spontaneous overflow of powerful feeling. People hear that part, but the recollected in tranquility. No one hears what that means.
All right. Take it easy.
It's not fucking emotional.
So, anyway, that's Maggie.
She sounds great.
She is.
Yeah.
This is nice. I'm having a nice time.
She reaches across the table and takes his hand. She turns it over and looks at his palm. She traces her finger across the lines there. This is the first time they've touched, aside from the hug, in years. It lingers.
Look at that.
What?
I just got some information.
Anything good? Look, I have to clean up and rest a bit before the reading. You'll come, right?
Where are you staying?
That little motel, just a couple of blocks that way.
Jesus, Paul, that place is a dump.
So you'll come.
Of course.
As they are getting up to leave, the lights go to black.
And then some other stuff happens later. Thanks everybody for watching. I'd be happy to do that, but they're online queuing. People here won't have.
Actually, I could ask if anyone online watching has a. Does anyone online watching have a question for Aaron or Amy?
Or Gillian or Sophie.
And if anyone in here has a question, you can ask. And if anyone wants to get a drink, please do. I think
Working
we're
hard,
having
guys.
trouble with internet on the card reader, so it might be on the house.
All right.
Well, how long did it take you to do it, to write it?
Well, I'm still writing it. This is a full-length play, and this is just the first scene from it. And I haven't finished it yet. I don't quite know how it's going to end. But I have. I mean, it's getting there, and then I'll workshop it and stuff. But it's I've been working on it for a couple months. It's still really it's really baby writing right now.
Should I get up? Yeah.
I'll-
Did you want to know how long? Oh,
What's that process for that story?
yeah. Honestly, I think I started it a couple of years ago, and then I put it away. I think a lot of writers have a lot of things going on at the same time. Is this true?
I think that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like all the different books on your bookstand, or your nightstand. So I knew I wanted to end with something twining up out of a grave, but not in a creepy way, so that honestly, it's not done yet. I feel like with Aaron too, I'm still tinkering. I was told by my family that it's exceedingly morbid, and I said, yeah, it's about death. So I'm so glad that
Like in a
you
good way.
started with death.
You know, it's like that of a piece.
Yeah. I don't think things are ever finished, right? Nah. That's how we feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love to tell that story about Gore Vidal writes in the introduction to Tennessee Williams short stories.
Oh, I don't need this, do I?
Yeah, that they were at somewhere like in the Mediterranean, apartment living in the sea together. And, Vidal got up and walked out and found Williams at a desk working diligently. And he looked at what he was working on, and he had his printed copy of his collected short stories, and he was editing in the
Man! Oh! Yeah, that wouldn't be me. I'm a lot lazier than that person. Right? I mean, at some point you just got to move on.
Yeah.
That was so interesting. Was that, how, could you hear people talking through a mask? I'm just curious. How did that go? I can hear you. Yeah.
I can hear you fine.
Okay. It's an interesting process. Yeah. Oh, I know. Our ups, our downs, they're second nature to us now. Like, no. Are we good? You have to do a lot with your eyes. I can't do that. So,
Smize.
smize. Are we? This is a very interesting experience.
I know it is for me too.
Yeah. I mean, could stand here, we could sing a little song.
I think we're probably good.
I think we're good.
Yeah,
Can I
yeah.
call it a time?
Good job.
Karen, I wanted to ask you what,
Sure.
I won't get in front of the camera, they can hear me though.
Okay.
Probably.
I'll repeat the question. You can ask it and I'll repeat it here.
Yeah. You've done some productions here with Endangered Species.
I have done productions here with Endangered Species, yeah.
So people who've been here before might be familiar with some of that. What, how did you get involved with them, and like what exactly is your role with Endangered Species? I forgot your title.
Okay, it's always sort of morphing. But I got involved with Endangered Species when Christine Moser, who's sitting right here, and we're partners in this whole thing. We went and got coffee once with a mutual friend, and we just hit it off. And I think I sent her an email saying, "I feel like we're kindred spirits. We should talk more." And we did. And I started working with her as an actor, and then we just kept working together. And so now she's artistic director of the company, and I'm a creative director, which just sort of means I help out with stuff. And I'm going to be heading up the education department. And so I'm starting Frederick Writers Workshop as an offshoot of the education department under Endangered Species. So Frederick Writers Workshop is going to be a school for writing. We're going to bring in professional writers to teach fiction, poetry, playwriting, screenwriting, and we'll do workshops with teens on college writing and stuff like that. And then there'll also be some like reading, how to read poetry, how to read literature like a professor type of stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Hi. It's starting. So the plan was that it would start this summer. What's that? Oh, sorry. When is that going to be starting? She says, and it's a really good question because I hopefully soon. But I hate the idea of doing it via Zoom, but I think that's what we're going to have to do to start. So I'm going to try to get something moving while we're still in Zoom, and then hopefully when all this lifts up and we can meet in person again, then it'll sort of explode and we'll have tons of classes. And as that's building up, I'll be gathering instructors and stuff like that. But there will be some stuff happening probably within a month online.
And what is that going to be called?
Frederick Writers Workshop. Mm-hmm. There will be a website and everything up soon, but if you check with Endangered Species, that'd be a place to find it. Look for Endangered Species Theater Project. Thanks for asking. Cool.
Oh, okay.
Here's your chance to plug.
Oh, I'm so good at plugging. It just comes naturally.
You should tell me and I'll plug it for you.
Yeah. Oh, so the question was, can I talk about the novel that's in progress? You know, it's my third novel that's in progress. I have two finished, and I would like to say that writing them is a lot easier than trying to find a literary agent. And if people are interested in that sort of part of the business, man, alive. The one I'm writing now is my Maryland novel, though. The other two were the Northeast novels because when we moved here, we grieved for New England for about 10 years. Like it wasn't there anymore, though, that we'd left. And then now I thought, gosh, I live in this state. It might be easier to write about something I could research by walking down the street. And we live in a really interesting part of Frederick because we live near the watershed. If you live in the city, your water comes from the reservoir up the road from us, but our water comes from wells. But I promise that I never go swimming in your reservoir or boating or like apparently many people. I did not hang out there in high school with beer and my boyfriend. So I don't know. I'm assuming they have a very good purification system. Anyway, yeah, so this novel sort of takes place on our road, but I've made up everything except one thing, and it was launched, and then I'm shutting up about it. Visiting a friend in St. Paul, Minnesota, maybe 10 years ago, I heard something on the news about a woman, an elderly woman in an assisted living facility shooting one of her paid companions in the arm, which was so fascinating to me. And that stuck in my head. And then I thought, wow, what would that be like? And I don't like guns. I don't have guns. I actually am from Brooklyn, New York, where you really, if you have a gun, you're not using it for any good reason. So we did not have guns in my family. So I know nothing about them. And I have found that this whole novel is full of guns. It's got a water gun. It's got a gun. It's got a Smith and Wesson, if that's like an old rifle. And I'm feeling very awful about this now. But, no one's actually going to get killed. Yes, it is a cautionary tale. The water gun may be the most dangerous. So,
Is there a way to get your other novels?
I wish there would. Is there a way to get those other novels? Yes, a literary agent could maybe think about, giving me a break here. Or it could be, this is the anti-plug, that they really are just terrible, but I don't think
They're
they
not.
are. Oh,
There's-
okay.
there's-
You haven't read them. How do you know?
Well, I've read your writing.
Oh, that's true. I'd like to get them out there. It is remarkably weird getting published, and I think there are probably things I'm not doing. But what I'm doing is, teaching and kind of trying to keep the family together and raising a puppy. And does this sound like one long excuse? No, it doesn't? Okay, good. But thanks for asking. They will get out there. They
will.
are good novels. Damn it. Can I say? All right.
Well, thanks, everybody. Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay. Oh my, it's hot. Thank you all. Holy smoke, what nice people to stand out here.
Okay, I'll just outro this. Thanks for coming, people who are here. Thanks for visiting us online. I know we had one person from Omaha watching. And she works in public health, so she's really busy right now. We have on Friday, we have another open mic, an acoustic music open mic. Frederick Acoustic Music Enterprise is hosting that, and we're going to take a stab at it. They've advised the musicians to bring their own microphone, so there aren't too many people breathing on the one or whatever. And but that, I don't know if they have any time slots left, but you need to go to Fame's Facebook page. I think it's Frederick Fame. It's Frederick Acoustic Music Enterprise, and they have a post where you can comment, and they'll give you a time slot for that on Friday. That's also free, and we will have the bar. It'll be over there on Friday, though.
Can you tell
Yes.
them this will be on the Endangered Species YouTube page?
Oh, yes.
But they can tell their friends.
Okay. All right. So this will remain on the Sky Stage Facebook video, and it might show up in other places eventually too, if we can get it uploaded. Let's see. Is there anything else I should be announcing, Logan? Our next live stream event will be a concert with a Pennsylvania duo. And when I say duo, think Black Keys, but it's a lady drummer and a guitar player and vocalist. And I hear that just the two of them can raise the roof pretty well. So they'll be live streaming July 18th right here, and we will have an audience too, as much as we can allow with distancing. And if you're in Frederick, come on down to Sky Stage. You can see this art installation that's a little bit off camera, I believe, by Larry Cook. He's a Maryland artist and has done some pretty significant work and shown in some pretty significant places. This was a smaller budget project with the Frederick Arts Council, but it will be here probably through August. Because we're having smaller audiences, so we'll have room to keep it up. And you can see it even when the building is closed. If the building's open, you can come. The artist encourages people to engage with it and sit there and take selfies and engage with the piece. So we'll keep it up as much as we can. I think, is that about everything? Thank you so much, Aaron. Thank you so much. Professors Angelo and Gottfried from Hood College for hosting the reading tonight and doing these great readings. It's been really lovely. And everyone have a great night.